Right, good. Ooh, that's a bit loud. Good morning, everybody. Just remove that so I'm not blasting everyone. Jolly good, thank you. So this is a meeting of South Cambridgeshire District Council's Cabinet. Welcome to Cabinet members, officers, members of the Council and anybody else who is tuning in. So can you please make sure your phones are on mute? The normal procedure at Cabinet is we take votes by affirmation, and when we move to a vote on an item, I'll ask if members agree with the proposal, and only those members present in the chamber, which I think is the whole of Cabinet, will be able to vote. And I will take speaking Cabinet members and then other members in that order. So, to begin with, I don't think we have any apologies for absence, do we? No, thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest relating to the agenda today? No declarations of interest. Minutes of the previous meeting. I'm happy to propose these. I think Councillor Brian Milnes is going to second them. Do members agree to approve the minutes, or are there any issues? Agree to approve the minutes?
Agreed.
Agreed. Anyone wish to vote against them? Against the proposal? Anyone wish to abstain? No. Cabinet therefore agrees the approval of the minutes as a correct record by affirmation. Announcements. I have one announcement. Last week, I and Chloe from HR attended the IEC Awards in London, in Church House in London, which is very lovely. Where South Cambridgeshire District Council was awarded a Bronze Award for innovation for our 4-day week project. So that was very lovely and was very, very well received by everyone in the audience. So moving on from that, I don't think we have any public questions, do we? No public questions today, thank you. So the first item on the agenda then is the update from Scrutiny and Overview. We don't have anyone present today from officially from Scrutiny and Overview. They looked at Q3 performance report, homelessness strategy, the Conservative group budget proposals and the Ermine Street housing, and we are asked to note their report, which I hope you've all read. Is Cabinet happy to note the report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. So, moving on to the main item today is the update on the 4-day week trial, and I'm going to hand over to Councillor John Williams to propose this, and I will happily second it. So, over to you, John.
Thank you, Leader. The recommendations are on page 22 of the agenda pack, a number of recommendations. First of all, I'd like to say, of course, when we met back in March last year, by the time we got to this point, we would be expecting to say that the results of the trial would be considered, a report produced, and we would be going out to consultation, and then the full council would meet before the summer to make a decision. Unfortunately, the Secretary of State had other ideas, and at Christmas said that any council with a 4-day week would face some sort of financial penalty using some sort of financial levers. And the problem that's given us is that we can't, therefore, until we know what those financial impacts are, we can't go out and consult in any meaningful way. So what this report is saying is that, yes, we will, as we agreed back in on the 20th of March last year, that the 4-day week for desk staff would continue after the trial while we go and look at the results and produce a report. But we can't go beyond that, because we can't then consult, because we can't tell people what the financial implications will be if we go ahead with a 4-day week. So until we're in that position, we can't consult, and until we consult, we can't then, as a council, meet to make a decision as to whether we should continue or not. So the actions of the Secretary of State, as a result of the local government financial settlement, has left us in a bit of a limbo. But nevertheless, we will be continuing, once the trial finishes at the end of this month, we will be continuing with the assessment of that trial. And our intention is that although we can't go and consult, we will be bringing a report to full council before the summer, so that members can get a feel for how the trial went and what the outcome has been. A couple of other things I just want to cover while I'm introducing this, and that is there's obviously been some misunderstanding over the purpose of the trial. And if I take you back to the meeting of this Cabinet on the 12th of September 2022, when we actually decided to continue with a 12-month trial, the purpose of that trial has been, first of all, KPI performance and the health and well-being of our staff. If you look at paragraph 21 of that report, it is quite clear that they are the two main reasons for the trial. The following paragraph then explains that what we're looking for is more applicants, better retention, and we're looking for savings. We're looking for cost savings. But there's been some misunderstanding, I think, because some people have suggested that the whole purpose of the trial was to save £1 million. And that was never the intention of the trial. If you go back and look at that report from the 12th of September 2022, you will see that in paragraph 16, there was a description of where we were with agency staff as of August 2022. And at that time, we identified a number of agency staff that were costing us about £2 million, and we reckoned that if all of those posts were filled, then we would make a saving of about £1 million. But it never any suggestion at that time that we would be able to fill all those posts. And so, part of the trial was to actually see what those cost savings could be. And I'm very delighted to say, as we've seen from the report, that we have made, a significant saving in our agency staff costs, which is incidentally is an overspend. So we don't budget to employ agency staff. We budget to employ staff at the full-time post, and so that extra cost is an overspend on our budget. So the saving is actually us not spending money from our reserves to fill those posts, and that money can then be used for other things in council services. So I think I just wanted to say that, there has certainly been some misunderstanding, and I would recommend people go back to that report of the 12th of September 2022, which actually set out the reasons why we were doing this trial. And it would suggest, and if you look at paragraph 16 of this report, that the three objectives of our best value duties, namely, economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, I believe that the trial has actually met that test of those three aims of best value duty. But obviously, we will need to wait and see the outcome of the analysis of the trial to make sure that we have actually met that test, and that we are able then, once we understand the financial implications, be able to then go and consult before we make a decision for this council. So I would urge you to approve the recommendations, which you would also see includes continuing with the trial for the waste service, and also harmonising the working hours for both desk-based staff and waste staff at 32 hours per week. This is good practice, and that represents just over 85% of contracted hours from the 1st of April 2024. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Williams. So there has been some public debate recently about a full working week being categorised as 35 hours. So actually we are only marginally shy of that, if that's something that becomes general practice nationally. So do we have any questions from members of Cabinet? No? Any questions from anywhere else? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. So numerous questions, but I'll try and focus in on a couple of areas. One of which would just be clarity, because on page 30 of the report, it refers to the different savings, one of which it says about the discontinuation of recruitment and retention incentives in the waste service. Just wondering if officers were aware of that, because that might change their view on things. But also, there are other supplements and retention and recruitment incentives in other departments, and whether it is just waste that will be seeing the discontinuation, or whether it will be across the council. Equally, there is reference to, in that paragraph, to 2 vehicles being required. However, when we then look at another table, which is on page 62, para 13, it says about the 5-day week, 32 vehicles, and 4-day week, 36 vehicles, which obviously, unless my maths is failing me, is 4. So if we could have some sort of narrative around why the variance there, because obviously that would have quite an impact on the costings of it. And also a question around the choice, really, that we can see in this chart that it's for this service as a whole, but obviously South Cambs' share, and 50-50 in waste, 62-38, I believe, in planning, where the South Cambs breakdown is, why that's not been included, because obviously that's what we're here to look at, is for our residents. And the agency expenditure that's been used as a comparative, my understanding that the lead member may say this is wrong, but this is how we were informed previously, is a reflection of 5 days pay agency, and obviously were they agency to go on a 4-day week, that would be significantly lower. So why don't we have a like-for-like comparison of 4 days agency and 4 days staff for the council? I think they're the main cruxes, because, and also on the sickness, it doesn't appear that there's been any sort of data to remove the 20% less that people have been working. Therefore, there naturally will be 20% less sickness, because if it's your non-working day, you're not necessarily going to ring in sick. And when you take that 20% out, it works out about 1 hour per member of staff that's been saved. So not quite the glorified numbers. So why have the leadership decided to not include an allowance for that variance? Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, are you happy for me to go to Bode for the first 2 questions, which relate to his service? So Bode, if we could hand over to you for a narrative about the discontinuation of the incentives and the exact number of vehicles required for the 4-day week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Just to confirm that the modelling we did showed that we needed 4 vehicles to cope with the new growth rounds and for 4-day week. And there's a very straightforward breakdown for that. If we didn't have 4-day week, we would need 2 extra vehicles just to cope with the growth that has happened and that will happen in the future. By doing 4-day week, we did an extra 2 vehicles, and that's what's been costed. So again, just simply doing review of the rounds, optimizing them, and catering for growth that has happened already, so that the rounds are more balanced, and growth that we still expect to happen, we need 2 vehicles. Now, adding on top of that, going to a 4-day week approach, we needed 2 vehicles. So the only vehicles that we need for 4-day week are 2 vehicles, which we haven't purchased by continuing to use vehicles that have reached their natural end of life 7 year span. The second question, in terms of the incentives, we actually stopped those in September, and that was to get drivers. So people will recall that we had a very, very challenging time getting licensed HGV drivers just after the pandemic. So we had an incentive we paid them retention and also when they first joined. We've stopped those. We stopped them in, I believe, September and August. And that hasn't affected our recruitment so far.
Thank you very much, Bode. Who can direct the question to regarding whether we're still running with incentives in other services? Thank you very much, Jeff.
Yes, thank you through you, Leader. We market factor supplements, golden hello payments and retention payments are all levers that we've got that are in addition to the evaluation scheme that councils use for setting salaries for particular roles. And they're ways of recognising when a job market for a particular role is challenging, often due to shortage of people being available with that particular skill. Now, when these levers are used, they're awarded for a set period of time and then reviewed at the end of that period of time to see whether they're still needed. And it is still being used. Market factor supplements are still being used in the council. Planning, I think, has been referenced as one of those areas because when the review was undertaken, there was still a national shortage of planners. And by the looks of things, that's likely to continue for a period of time. So not only ourselves, but other councils are offering market factor supplements for some roles. It's really good news that we've been able to delete some of the levers in waste at the moment, but we still keep them on the books. So if the market changes for HGV drivers again, and I remember, I think it was about 18 months ago, there was a national shortage of HGV drivers, which led to this being implemented. If that market changes again, we can reintroduce them. But it's really positive to hear that the waste are able to recruit at the moment.
Oh, okay, so it's something, I mean, yes, all the drivers all went off to HS2, didn't they, where they've been paid huge amounts of money. So it's something that we award these for a set period of time, and at the end of that period of time, we do an analysis of the market and make decisions about whether to drop them, change them, or keep them. Okay, fine. Right, so just moving on. So on the... Right, so John Williams, do you want to respond to Councillor Williams' question about the agency expenditure and the sickness and the fact that we have based our stats on 5-day weeks, the savings on 5-day weeks rather than 4-day weeks? Or do you want me to hand that to Anne Ainsworth or to Jeff? Okay, thank you. Who wants to pick that up? I mean, my off-the-cuff answer would be that everything's got to be compared with a 5-day week in order for this to make sense, would be my answer.
I think in relation to the agency costs, Leader, what we're comparing is real costs. So at the moment, agency people are working 5 days a week. So when we're looking at the costs per week, we're looking at what they actually cost us to work for that week. I think some analysis was done in response to a question at Employment and Staffing Committee, I think about a year ago now, and Planning did a review of the performance of agency people working 5 days a week compared to our own people working 4 days a week, and actually our own people working 4 days a week were performing better than the agency people working 5 days a week. In terms of sickness, yes, we've always reported sickness per full-time employee, no matter how many hours they're working. I think it's a fair point that if you're looking at the impact on people's health, members do need to bear in mind that people are working one less day. So it might be that on their non-working day, they aren't reporting it. But when it comes to the savings that are achieved through reductions in sickness, the reason sickness costs money is because it disrupts planned service work. So I think an example that I normally give is if a member of staff was due to go out and visit somebody on site that day, and then they're sick, either that visit doesn't happen, and potentially if it's visit that costs money, we don't get that income at that stage. Or alternatively, we have to redirect somebody that wasn't due to go and do that visit to go and do that visit. And the work that they were going to do doesn't get done. So in terms of impact on disruption, actually it doesn't really matter whether you're looking at 30 hours or 37 hours, the impact is the same. But it is a fair point that, you know, if that was the only basis on which we were judging the improvement in welfare, then I think members would need to take that into account quite seriously. The fact that we've got the staff survey, which also looks at welfare, I think gives us a more complete picture.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williams, do you want to add anything before I go back to Councillor Williams, who might have more questions?
I think Councillor Williams also asked about why it was that we've only been looking at the gross figure and the net, when it comes to shared services, looking at the net figure for both services rather than the split between South Cambs and the city. I mean, when it comes to the planning service and 9 of the 10 hard-to-fill posts that we have filled permanently that were previously covered by agency staff, 9 of those are actually in shared planning. And the split between us and city in shared planning is, I think, 65-35 to us. Because obviously the way that we are progressing with the current local plan, it was very much front-ended in the city to start with, and as we've gone through the local plan, more of the development has been occurring in South Cambs, and therefore South Cambs is taking on more of the works, which is why it's not a 50-50 split. So the saving to us is around about 120, 130,000, around about 220, 230,000 pounds on the figures that are in the table on paragraph 69. So I would suggest that, you know, getting on for £250,000 is still a pretty good saving. Okay, you know, it's not as much as some people had hoped for if we'd filled all the hard-to-let posts. But as I said, back in September 2020, the intention never was to fill all the hard-to-let posts. And the fact that we have filled, getting on for half of those hard-to-let posts, has meant that we have still made, you know, and this is an annual saving, because this is not just a one-off saving either. This is a saving that will go on every year of about £250,000. I would suggest that that's a pretty good figure for us to achieve.
Thank you. And for clarification, I gather that we have, during the course of the trial, identified other hard-to-fill posts which we hadn't included. And obviously, we can't, you know, we have to work with the same baseline data, but we've identified other hard-to-fill posts which have now been successfully filled with people, you know, saying that the 4-day week plays a significant part in their decision to come here.
Absolutely, Leader. There are more posts that we have filled that we would have otherwise have used agency staff for, but we have not counted because they were not one of the original posts that we looked at back in September 2020.
Thank you, and we've heard from Jeff Membry that agency staff, good as they are actually less productive in their 5 days than our own staff are in 4 days, which is you know, quite a strong statement to make. Councillor Heather Williams, have you any other questions you want to ask?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Just on page 17, paragraph 50, something of interest, because it's not something that I've been able to find anywhere else. It says that it was always the intention and expectation that once the waste trial was completed, that there'd be this sort of balancing out, because obviously something that members will know we've raised being uncomfortable that some are on 32 and some are on 30. Is there anywhere that we could be directed to that it shows this express harmonisation that was the intention? And just on new starters, so from the report, it's 39% of new starters said that the 4-day week had a positive impact, and 43% said it had impacted their decision. So just some perspective for members. I'll come to Councillor Williams. I mean, I'd just like to, before Councillor Williams answers, I'd just like to say, you know, the whole point of the trial is that you learn things during the process of the trial,
And when we embarked on the waste trial, you know, we initially tried to make it fit within 30 hours, and it became obvious that in order to run an efficient service, it needs to be 32. But we've always been very aware, particularly in, you know, a lot of very, very serious and productive engagement with the unions, that we had to be, you know, it had to be a level playing field, and we had to be fair to all our staff. But Councillor John Williams, do you want to come in? And then I don't know if any officers want to add to that.
I think, Leader, you said it, that obviously when we set off on this, which is back in January in 2023, we didn't know exactly what we were going to face. And we took a straightforward decision that we would pro-rata the hours down for desk-based staff, and until we started to look at the optimisation of the waste collection rounds for a 4-day operation, we didn't know exactly how many hours the operatives would have to work to enable them to do that work in four days. And, you know, and as a result, we have discovered that, our waste operatives have to work 32 hours, and it's reasonable, and to be a good employer, we would expect desk-based staff to work the same hours as their colleagues in the waste service, which is why we're harmonising it at 32 hours. And I pick up a point that Leader made earlier. You know, this isn't very far short of a full week, actually. You know, 35 hours is considered to be a full working week, and our staff are working 32 hours. So, you know, this is not a case of staff working part-time. It is a case of staff working, delivering 5 days a week work in 4 days for 5 days a week pay. And that's always been the principle of the trial. And I say, you will see once the trial's over and we start analysing the results of the trial, all that will be presented to members in due course, and members will then be able to make a decision on whether they wish the 4-day week in both services to continue.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come to Jeff and then Bodie to pick up on any detail.
Excuse me, Leader. Yes, just to mention, when the report that came to Cabinet in May last year, authorising the waste trial, previously went to Scrutiny and Overview Committee. The then Chair, now Vice Chair, raised the question about whether we would harmonise hours. And as part of that committee meeting, I gave an answer to the Chair that indeed we would need to, exactly as Councillor John Williams has described, once we understood the number of hours, we would need to harmonise. I vaguely recall that it's come up in other meetings, but that's the only one where I can precisely recall that it has been discussed.
Thank you. So that's a very nice example of the value of scrutiny, raising an important issue that then becomes our practice. That's really good. Sorry, please continue.
Just to say that we've always been open about this. The fact that harmonising hours is need to make sure that we're being legal and safe and fair in the way that we apply this policy. And I think we've always been open to members and officers about that.
Thank you. Bodie, do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Just to add that it took us quite a while to settle on 32 hours. So it wasn't just a figure that we picked. We actually considered several options. We looked at 30 hours, we looked at 32 hours, we looked at 34 hours, we looked at a rota system working 4 days over 5. So it took us a while. We did extensive planning. 32 hours was what we found to give us the most optimum solution in terms of the least impact on well-being, i.e. our colleagues only having to work 2 hours, but also the least amount of additional resources, i.e. vehicles. So that 32 was based on quite a lot of extensive work, hence why we didn't start in September, to try and find the most optimum solution that gives the best well-being for staff, but also minimizes additional costs.
Thank you. And I well remember going with Councillor Batchelor up to the depot before the trial started and being really pushed for, when are we going to start this? They were very, very keen. But, the amount of planning that had to go into it, I know took time, but I think has proved to be very worthwhile. Councillor Williams.
I do appreciate the lead coming back to me. It's a very short one. How long has the authority been using golden handcuff incentives?
Yeah, okay, I don't even know what a golden handcuff is, actually.
It's where you pay a sum for people to stay at the authority for a certain period of time. A bit like a golden hello, but more of a handcuffing you to the desk.
Particularly for the waste service.
Bodo, do you know what the answer to this is?
I'm not at all familiar with that term, and I'm not familiar at all with us paying people to stay to the desk. I don't know the answer. I apologize. I'm not familiar with this at all.
Leader, if it helps, it's not something that's normally used in waste service. It's normally a desk-based operation.
Shall we come back? Can we come back to you on that? Jeff?
I can't give an answer as to exactly when we started using it. I know what Councillor Williams means. It's when you pay a retention, you pay money up front normally, then after a certain number of years you pay a retention payment, and if somebody then leaves, they have to pay that money back. So it's a return. Now, it's been available to us to use ever since we've been on the current evaluation scheme, which is sort of over 10 years, but I can't say when we actually started using them, so I'll have to get that information off of my HR colleagues and get back to Councillor Williams.
Okay, so it's been, so to have a clarification, it's been available to us under our current retention scheme for over 10 years. Okay. But we don't know if and when it's been used, so we'll get back to you on that. So, righty-ho. So, if there's no other questions, thank you very much indeed for everyone's contributions. I'm not going to read out all the recommendations because they are long and detailed. Just find my place again. Right, so Councillor John Williams is proposing. I'm happy to second. Do members agree with the proposals as set out?
Agreed.
Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. Thank you very much indeed. That was a good and productive debate. So moving on to item 8, which is the Q3 performance report, and Councillor John Williams is proposing that, and I think Councillor Bill Handley is seconding it. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. I'm delighted to recommend that Cabinet review and agree the KPIs for the Q3 of current financial year. That's the period to end of December. As I mentioned earlier, one of the measures of success for the 4-day week was the KPI performance. And one of the things that we've consistently seen since the 4-day week trial has been going is the improvement in our KPI performance. And I'm very delighted with the performance of the third quarter of this financial year. And I'm happy to deal with any questions on it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Handley, do you want to add anything?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. So thank you to Kevin Ledger, who's, as always, done an excellent job with a very easy to understand report, which makes all of our lives easier. Are there any questions from any members? No? Okay, so we'll move straight to recommendations. So it's recommended that we review the KPI results and comments at Appendix A and progress against the business plan actions at Appendix B, and recommend where appropriate any actions required to address any issues identified, which I don't think we have. So do members agree with the proposal?
Agreed.
Thank you. Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. So cracking on, item 9, Lifeline Service and the Lifeline Service and financial impact of the digital changeover. It's quite a complicated item. So Councillor John Batchelor is proposing this and Councillor Bill Handley seconding it. So Councillor Batchelor, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. Well, it's not all that complicated, really. It's fairly straightforward. In fact,
Why it's all being changed, the digital stuff's complicated. That's what I'm hearing.
So I'm a simple soul, so to me what this is about is there's a change to digital thing is, and in order to do that it costs a good deal of money, and effectively the Lifeline service as we are running it is unviable, and so we wish to close it down. We appreciate, obviously, that people are dependent on this at the moment, so the strategy here is to give as much support as possible to those who need to change to a new supplier, and there are plenty of suppliers around who actually charge less than we do currently anyway, so there's benefits for the users. I'd also make the point that our own sheltered housing is not included in this operation at all. We will still maintain a Lifelines type service for all our sheltered housing tenants who require it. So other than that, I'm happy to move the recommendation, which is to close down this operation and provide the support outlined.
Thank you very much, Councillor Batchelor. Councillor Handley, have you any comment?
Just to say, I'm sure that our officers will give every help and support that is needed by people who are moving from one service to another. I'm confident of that.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any questions about this? So my understanding is that once this decision's taken, we will be writing to anybody using the service and hopefully advising them on what to do next.
There's a 3-month period when officers will be freed up to provide the support.
Super. Okay, thank you very much indeed. So the recommendations are set out on page 116. Do members agree with the proposal?
Agree.
Anyone wishing to vote against? Anyone wishing to abstain? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. Thank you very much. Item 10 is the homelessness strategy, and that's Councillor John Batchelor again, seconded this time by Councillor Toomey Hawkins. So back to you, Councillor Batchelor.
Yes, thank you, Leader. The homelessness strategy is required to be upgraded, reviewed on a regular basis. So we've done that and gone out to consultation. The strategy is, of course, also really quite straightforward. It has two objectives. One is to try and prevent homelessness by giving support and advice. And if we are not successful, we are currently more than 50% successful in prevention. So that's a great performance by our team. But if we can't, then we provide accommodation and support for the homeless. So that's basically what we're proposing, and I'm happy to move the recommendations on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Batchelor. Councillor Hawkins?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, happy to support this, and I'm particularly keen to see that we're planning on improving the housing options that are available for single people, both those who can share and those who can't. They usually tend to be at the bottom of the pile, but yeah, happy to support this.
Thank you very much. Yes, and our thanks to Sue Carter and her team for doing a lot of work on this. Homelessness is going up nationally, less so here than other places, but we're still seeing quite concerning increases. And our focus seems to be on as early intervention as is possible to support people to help themselves as much as possible. So, yeah, it's not a problem that's going away anytime soon. So any questions from any Cabinet members? Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Leader. Just something that, overall, the homelessness, we obviously support anything that can help deal with that. But just one thing that might not be on members' minds, but to be more, perhaps all of us aware of. It's a piece of a case work that I've had recently of somebody that's terminally ill, and the issue was that they were in a flat, so they were capable for quite a long time. But unfortunately, because of brain tumour then creates seizures, and therefore stairs were no longer an option. And fantastic work has been done since those seizures. He's now able to apply for a 2-bed because obviously he has some stay and ground floor. But essentially became homeless because the accommodation overnight was not suitable, and ended up having to live essentially in a pub short term, which is not, in that situation is not ideal. There probably were things in hindsight that could have been done earlier, but I think our processes basically meant that until he was at that point of such sickness, to get him in, to be able to give him a 2-bed. And I'm just wondering, it might not be that there is any flexibility, but if perhaps we could take a review of what we do in those situations, because that was a statistic that could have been avoided potentially. So it's not, just something to have on people's minds.
Thank you. And I think we probably all have, similar stories. Recommendation 5 says to prevent homelessness, we want to focus on earlier intervention to increase the chance of resolving applicants' difficulties. We do need people to tell us, don't we? So I think, perhaps I'll refer to Councillor John Batchelor about how we can, how, if there's anything we can do to encourage people to flag to us earlier on that, there's a problem down the road, so that we can, fulfil our intention of even earlier intervention.
That's noted, Leader.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm sure we can use our magazine and so on to do that. So thank you. So if there's no more questions, thank you very much. Recommendations set out on page 128. Do members agree with the proposals?
Agreed.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. And item 11, gosh, this is a long agenda today, isn't it? Amendments to the Zero Carbon Communities Grant, and that's Councillor Henry Batchelor is going to propose this, and Councillor John Williams is going to second it. So, Councillor Batchelor, please.
Yep. Thank you, Lydia. I'll be as brief as possible. Hopefully it's fairly straightforward. So for those that are aware of the grant, it's probably one of the more popular grants in South Cambs and has proven to be since its inception. One of the side effects of that is we do get we tend to get more applications than we have money for, in spite of us putting more and more funding into the pot every year. As a result of that, we have to keep reviewing the criteria to make sure we're being as fair as possible to everyone. So what we have in front of us today are some slight amendments to said criteria. Probably the easiest way to display that is if everyone looks at Appendix B. All the changes to the current criteria for the fund are highlighted in yellow. Essentially, the changes, in summary, are that we're just asking for people to get more than, say, one quote if they're applying for solar PVs to ensure value for money, not only for the applicants, but for us as the fund givers as well. And then also, if the project the applicant is applying for is related to nature, then we do try to redirect them, if possible, to the Community Chest Biodiversity Pot, which is another fund that this local authority facilitates, therefore leaving more money in the ZCC grant available for the other applicants who wish to apply. There's also some slight additions regarding regulatory consent. So one of the questions we now ask is, do you have all the various permissions needed to undertake the project should you be successful? So things like planning permission, highways permission, etc. So that's just another sort of belt and braces addition to the criteria. I think those are all the changes I'm going to update on verbally. I appreciate we have a raft of officers who have appeared on the screen who may wish to add something. But that's all I will introduce for this item. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Leader. I don't know if Orla wants to add anything to...
Thank you. Yes, so thank you to Orla Gibbons for the report, and also to Alex Snelling-Day for the work that she's done. Would either of you like to raise any issues?
No, I think that was an excellent summary. Thank you very much. The only addition would be that there's just some tightening up of the requirements we make for groups in reporting their avoided CO2 emissions. So they're now required to use the sort of prescribed methodology, so we can compare those like for like. That's it, though. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else you want to add, Councillor Williams?
No.
Okay, fine. Okay, so this is really about making some changes to make sure that the quality of the applications coming in makes it easy for us to process them and allocate money to the best place. So, we're one of the few councils, I imagine, in the current financial climate who are able to give out grants to communities of this type. We're surrounded by councils who are accessing all of their grant giving at the moment. I spent yesterday morning chairing the Environment and Communities Committee at the Combined Authority, where they've allocated a couple of £1 million to zero carbon and environmental projects, and some of that money is meant to go down to community level. Because of capacity issues, they didn't manage to get it mobilised last year. So the members of the committee have done a big push yesterday to get that all rolling, and actually to get us as local authorities more involved. So I'll be talking to officers further about that in the next few days. So any questions from Cabinet members? No. Any other questions from anyone else? No? Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Orla. Thank you, Alex. And so recommendations are set out in the paper. Do members agree with the proposals?
Agree.
Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. So item 12 now, the increasing protection for high streets ATMs. So this is a new one. Jolly good. So we've got Councillor Handley is going to propose this. Councillor Peter MacDonald is going to second it. And have we got an officer online? Marvellous, thank you. Okay, right. Councillor Handley.
Thanks, Leader. It's sad that attacks on ATMs in villages is very, very common. Of course, these attacks don't just affect the companies that own and operate the ATMs. It means a significant loss of service to our residents, especially those who can't access alternative electronic methods of banking. The other thing is repeated thefts from ATMs increase the risk of the service being discontinued permanently, and that's happened in a number of wards, including my own, sadly. I'm sure everybody in the room will understand that there are a number of different ways that criminals might attack these machines, but ram raiding is one of the most common. Stolen vehicles, driving into the building where the ATM is located. Point is, they need to get close to the ATM to remove it, and it's heavy because it's heavy. This is about trying to make it harder for them to get close to the ATM with vehicles and lifting equipment. That's what this is about. Anti-ram bollards can be used, but the proposal here is to actually use heavy-duty planters, which have the advantage of being sort of an attractive street feature as well as an obstacle to the thieves. The other advantage is that the local community is invited to become part of the management, and they can decide how the planters look. It's part of their street scene. So at the moment, we only have one site confirmed, and that's in the Co-op store in Camborne. And the proposal here is that we agree to that project, or that particular project proceeding. Now, the funding for the project is going to come from, or is coming from the Shared Prosperity Fund. It's a one-off funding of 100,000. As seems to be often the case with the combined authority bidding process, there's a tight application deadlines, and this is why in the report, apart from a Camborne proposal, that the number of planters and their location is not defined yet. The police are advising officers that work is ongoing, and the report will be updated as soon as it can. The officer recommendation is on page 248 of 248 of the online version, and that's to proceed with the protection of the ATM at the co-op in School Lane, Cambourne, and then to delegate to the head of transformation, in consultation with myself, decisions on additional locations should they be found.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second, and if I may just say briefly, obviously this area crosses over to responsibilities between communities and business support. The business support team is very happy to support this and work with the communities team, work with the police, and of course also work with farmers, because this is one of the problems is the theft of vehicles from farms which are used to ram raid. So I'd like to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I wonder if this might encourage some of the banks to put some of these ATMs back in, such as the one in Gamlingay, which the bank got ram raided so many times that closed down, and then the co-op got ram raided. It was almost a weekly occurrence. So we've lost ours. I have to go to Bedfordshire for an ATM. So yes, welcome this. Councillor John Batchelor.
Well, just to say, much the same as you, in Linton, the co-op has been ram-raided numerous times over recent years. The only issue now is it too late, because they have already withdrawn that facility. So, yeah, but I support anything that may make a difference there. Thank you.
Yeah, we could have done with it a few years ago, couldn't we, really? But anyway, better late than never. Linda, is there anything you want to add? You're online. Oh, we're in the room. I'm looking up at the screen. I'm sorry.
Okay. Nothing really further to add. I think we've highlighted everything in the programme, in the paper. We would just like to continue, as I said, with the Cambourne one, just to see what we can learn from that installation. And we are looking at a second tranche of sites, probably around 14 or so, over and above the 14 that police recommended as the high risk areas, to see whether or not there's more we can do there during the next 12 months. So it won't just stop at this first group. Super, thank you very much indeed. It'd be nice if comms picked up on that when it's done and we got some nice pictures and things, because it's a good bit of partnership working. Thank you very much, Linda, for all your hard work. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, recommendations are set out on page 248. Do members agree with proposals? Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. Thank you very much, everybody. And now mobile warden schemes, additional funding. Councillor John Williams is going to propose this, and Councillor Bill Handley, I believe, is seconding it. So, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. I think this district council, certainly within Cambridgeshire, is unique in that it supports a mobile and community warden scheme where volunteers or carers go in and see people that are homebound, mainly elderly people, making sure they're okay, maybe doing shopping for them, make a cup of tea for them, etc. Most of these schemes are run by national organisations like Age UK, but in South Cambs we have for some time now supported local schemes run by parish councils or other community groups to do this. It's been a bit of a postcode lottery though, and only about half of our parishes actually have such a scheme. And so in the coming year we've asked the consultancy to come in and look at the way the schemes are run, to understand how sustainable they can be, and to see whether or not we can put a model together to encourage other groups, other communities to also introduce these schemes, so that we have them across the district. Now, Unfortunately, out of the 40-odd schemes that we run, 11 are run by Age UK, and they came to us literally just a few weeks ago to say that because they'd lost funding from other elsewhere, that they were proposing to close the 11 schemes that they run. And clearly that would make be great concern to our local communities because of the support that they give. And we had to take some action to ensure that we at least keep their schemes going for the next year while the review is going on by the Roads Corporation. What the outcome of that review is going to be, I can't say. We certainly would like to be able to continue to support these schemes, and we would like to see them extended across the district. But, you know, as Age UK has shown, they are fragile, you know, financially. They operate on very low margins. And in Age UK's case, they've actually been subsidising their schemes from elsewhere, which is what made them vulnerable when they have lost funding. So for this coming financial year only, I'm proposing that we do support the 11 Age UK schemes to ensure that they continue running while the review is happening, so that at the end of the review, hopefully later this summer, we will then be able to put these schemes in South Cambs on a much more secure financial footing, so that we don't have the situation where we're confronted with a scheme folding at short notice because of lack of funds and also resources, because you know, these schemes rely on employing people to go and regularly visit people in their own homes, and like everything else, you know, there is a finite number of people who are available to do that. So again, you know, the review will also be looking at not just the organisation and the you know, the way that these things are managed, but also the costs and how the costs are managed and where the resources come from. So I hope you agree that we should continue, we should provide the funding so that the Age UK schemes can continue for the next 12 months. And then obviously there will be a paper coming to us later next financial year to make a decision on how we go forward in the future with these schemes.
Thank you. Councillor Handley.
Absolutely back Councillor Williams on this. The communities team has already done a great deal of work here. The decision by Age UK came as a bit of a shock, and a very unwelcome shock. But this will give the scheme a little bit of time, give the team time to decide how this scheme should continue, how it can be sustainable and still deliver the services that many people have become dependent on. So very welcome intervention, and I'm absolutely welcome it.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, the Appendix A shows the hard facts of the deficit that each of the schemes is running at. You know, we're in a really fortunate position here that we can step in and, you know, give this a stay of execution, because that's really what this is. So you know, and my huge thanks to Catherine Hawkes and Emma Dyer for all their work. I mean, are we talking to parish councils about them making contributions to this? Because of course, you know, they do have discretion over their precept, and it is the sort of thing that a parish council might think it's appropriate to step in and make a contribution towards. I wonder if anybody knows that.
Emma probably gives some detail. I mean, I have to admit that parish council support is a little bit patchy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I wonder whether we should be writing to parish councils, just explaining how critical this situation is, and just giving them the opportunity, and just saying what the consequences, because this is about keeping people in their own homes who otherwise would not be in their own homes. Councillor Milnes.
I think that was one of the points I was just going to make, that this is a very critical element of maintaining people's ability to live independently. So it should be seen, I would suggest, in the context of a wider integrated healthcare service and social care. I think as a parish councillor, I might struggle a little bit just on a technicality over whether it's within our remit as parish councils to contribute to this. I know that people who take this service are generally paying in part, so they make a financial contribution. I also know that it is a real contributor to people's abilities to stay, whether it's delivering a paper each day because they can't make it to the shops, as something as simple as that, or making sure they've got drugs, for example, when they need them. And it's very relatively small amounts of contributions that are making a substantial difference. So, although as a parish councillor, I wouldn't be unhappy to do that. I'd just be cautious that we aren't giving them additional burdens that they aren't obliged to do. Thank you.
No, okay. At the end of the day, any one of us might need these services. Emma, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, regarding parish councils, we are in regular contact with them, and as part of the review process, we will actually be sort of encouraging them to obviously, contribute to these schemes, which we know obviously do a lot of good within the district. So, thank you.
Good. Okay, and I mean, hopefully their district councillors will be able to, perhaps we need to supply the district councillors with some information in these areas to help them in that. They might be able to help facilitate those conversations with their councils. Any other cabinet member before I come to Councillor Williams? No, Councillor Williams.
Thank you. So in my patch, my little corner of the world, the parish councils do contribute quite a lot. South Cambs gives them a grant as well, but they're almost independent mobile warden schemes, and they're run very well and very efficiently. But I do think there's an issue with Age UK, sort of that sustainability, because obviously you can't every year be topping up the bill. So I understand that, but I think it's something that I think parish councils are probably already doing their bit, and a real understanding of how they've got to this situation would be really good, and perhaps there's some actually business support that can be given to them. I know they're a charity, but there may be efficiencies that could be made that way, because it is something that I'm sure everybody wants to see continue. Councillor Ellington would never forgive us if we didn't continue it, so please do support it.
Well, yes, and nor would Councillor Hales either. So absolutely. So I mean, I think the work we're doing is that work. Emma, I mean, do you want to respond to that? The work we're doing with Age UK to try and help them deliver a service that is sustainable and not hanging on year to year.
So we've commissioned an organisation called Rose Regeneration, which you might be aware of, and this is like a 6-month programme where we are sort of looking to see where we can make them more efficient and sort of learn and record the data. I think that's one of the key things. And then what we're going to do is we'll get a final report, which will tell us basically, a social return on investment figure, so obviously how cost effective these schemes are, but also it provides an opportunity for schemes to learn from other schemes. So if there's something that one might not know about, is that, what's some funding here, or, you could be recording this, or have you thought about doing it like this? It's just giving them sort of opportunities to share good practice. So hopefully, that will help Age UK especially.
Good, and I imagine we are, we're going to continue having fairly strong words with the county council, because these are, I reckon, about 150, 160 people who are not in residential social care because they're being kept in their homes. So, the burden then falls elsewhere. Okay, thank you very much indeed. So the recommendation is that we allocate just under £100,000 to Age UK to keep these 11 schemes going for the next year while this other work goes on. And then, you know, very sadly, we'll have to review it in a year's time, but hopefully, you know, it'll be a less pessimistic picture by then. So thank you very much indeed. Do members agree with the proposals? Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. So moving on to planning from social care, and this is the Greater Cambridge plan making timetable. This is complicated. Don't care what anyone says. So thank you very much. So Councillor Toomey Hawkins is going to present this, and I'm very happy to second it. So starting with you, Toomey, and I can see you've got lots of officers around ready to answer questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Leader. The local plan timetable gives details of timings that local authorities produce new or revised development plan documents, setting up policies in their area. Now, for us in Greater Cambridge, we actually set out and agreed our current timetable back in 2022. But we are not able to meet the timings in that timetable for a number of reasons, and we now need to update it. And besides, the December 2023 written ministerial statement by the Right Honourable Michael Gove requires us to, all councils to actually provide an updated timetable to DLOC. So here we are, taking steps to do just that. Now, our new timetable, or rather updated timetable, is now dependent on what I would say are 4 key factors. I think we're already aware of those, but I will just remind us what they are. Water supply is a very key one. And we know that the Environment Agency's concerns about the impact of water abstraction on the aquifers has led them to objecting to 3 major sites in our current adopted local plan, and also on our emerging joint Greater Cambridge local plan. We did ask for help from the government, and they were quiet until Mr. Gove's announcement of his Cambridge 2040 plans to build 150,000 plus houses in the Greater Cambridge area. He then set up a Cambridge water scarcity group to address this issue, for which we are thankful. And we're trying to work with the group to come forward with options to solve this problem. I think last Friday there was an ELGA water summit that took place, which council leader, you chaired one of the panels. But the point is that there needs to be a resolution of solutions on providing both short and long-term solutions. The second factor is the transport strategy. And of course, the role of transport corridors in supporting planned growth with appropriate sustainable travel options through the work of the Combined Authority and the Greater Cambridge Partnership. Now, we know that the suspension of the Making Connections proposal and the pausing of CSET due to costs meant that new modelling work is now taking place, for which we now await the outcome. However, I think remember that last week at the budget announcement, Jeremy Hunt promised 10 million to be invested in Cambridge to unlock delivery of crucial local transport and health infrastructure. Now, I suspect part of that is probably for CSET, but I'm not sure about the details, perhaps. But we need to wait and see what the outcome of that will be, where it needs to go. The third point is on the Cambridge wastewater relocation. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. And of course, we know that the development of Northeast Cambridge is dependent on that. And it's currently going through its development consent order process. Now, that consent order process was submitted 1 year later than we had expected. And now the decision is expected by the end of 2024. So that itself may change, we don't know. And the new national plan making system is also a factor where the government is making changes to how local plans are created. The main point being that the formal stages should be completed within a 30-month time frame. Now, those LPAs that want to adopt plans currently under the system we have now must submit their plans by the end of June 2025. We are not in that position. So it looks like we might be preparing a plan under the new system. And just to add one more, the Cambridge 2040, well, the impact of that, again, is something we don't know. So all these factors are outside our control. And we just need to sort of put this up formally in our revised timetable, and also write to DLOC to tell them what the new updated local plan timetable is. I will therefore like to move the recommendations which are in paragraphs 4A to D on pages 261 to 262 of the report in front of us. I must say at this point that these issues, and more recently the Cambridge 2040 plans, have resulted in a lot of work, additional work for our planning officers, for which we are not paid. We have asked for some grants, and I think we're getting some grants, so that would be good. But I also want to give official credit to the team and thank them for their hard work and their dedication in trying to get the best outcomes for our residents through all these unknown factors. Just want to ask, I don't know if Caroline has anything further to add, but at this stage, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask a question? So I mean, I met with Michael Gove and with other leaders before the announcement of Cambridge 2050, and did a real push for us to be one of these front runner pilots. Have we had any feedback on that at all? And have any councils been made front runners that we know of?
Thank you, Chair. No, at this point, there have been no front runners identified through DLUC at this stage. We're continuing to raise that at officer level, and the recommendation before you is to seek agreement from Cabinet to continue to push for that quite firmly. We think that's really important to be in the space of discussing the evolution of the new system, because the consultation so far, there's quite a lot of question marks in exactly how you would take it forward. And clearly for us, having done so much work already, it's important to ensure that the system enables a smooth transition from those authorities that are partway through plan making into the new system.
Thank you. Okay, so I've got a letter in my inbox from Michael Gove that landed last week, to which I haven't yet decided how to reply, but I think I will reiterate that in the response to him, to his letter that came last week, and as a real sort of headline that actually this will allow us to make progress, because I think we've got to be the most complicated local plan in the whole of the country by a country mile, haven't we? And we think we're just on top of things, and then everything changes. There's no water, there's no power, there's 150,000 extra houses. There's the GCP doesn't have the money to deliver the infrastructure. It's just it's a thing of nightmares, actually, isn't it? And yes, and I hope you're not all doing it in your spare time, actually, by the way. So right, any questions from Cabinet? Councillor Mills.
Yes, just want to add my disappointment about the amount of and the huge amount of uncertainty that the 2040/50, 150,000, 250,000 no terms of reference yet, and yet declared by Michael Gove as a place with very special circumstances, which he used in terms of greenbelt, amongst others. And I think, you know, if anything we can do to encourage Michael Gove and his department of DLUC to help us transition to the new system as rapidly as possible would be most welcome.
Thank you. Do we have any detail about, you know, if we did manage, you know, if we were accepted as a front runner pilot, what, you know, what we get for that? I mean, do we get, I hope we get money, actually, but what support do we get that actually allows us to deliver in this much shorter time frame? Have we been told that?
There really is no information on quite what that would mean. It's something that was referenced in the, you know, in the material put out with the new system, but we've not heard anything. There's been no formal communication to invite us to any authorities to put themselves forward as front runners, or what that would mean. But yes, absolutely, it's important that we do engage in that and push to be engaged, because it's really important to us and we're really important to, you know, to the country. So hopefully we're in a good place to, you know, to push to be in the space.
Okay, jolly good. So we want to be we want to be it, but we don't know what it is. But it's got to be better than what we've got. Chief Executive, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I think the only thing that I would add is that you simply can't transition all planning authorities at the same time, because you'd have a massive bottleneck at 36 months when everyone's trying to have their plan inspected. So that's part of the reason why they're doing this sort of transitional approach, as well as obviously, I suppose, trying to learn from the early authorities in terms of understanding what works and what doesn't.
Thank you, that makes sense. And as a council that had its last local planning inspection for 4 years, 4.5 years, so that was one of the worst in the country. Yeah, we get that, all right. So thank you very much. Any questions from anybody else? So I now have got some members online. Please do feel free to ask questions if you're online as well, giving up your mornings. Okay, thank you to Caroline, Jonathan, all your team. Imagine there's never a dull moment, but never a free moment either. So the recommendations are set out on pages 261 to 262. Do members agree with proposals? Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. Thank you very much, everybody. So moving on, more planning stuff. Statement of community involvement. And Councillor, no, I've jumped ahead. Councillor Toomey Hawkins is going to propose this, and Councillor Bill Handley is going to second it. So Councillor Hawkins again.
Thank you, Leader. First of all, I want to make a correction, please. Paragraph 4C should read, delegate to the Joint Director of Planning and Economic Development in consultation with the lead member for planning policy and development management, the authority to make any necessary editing changes to the statement of community involvement prior to publication.
Have you got that, Pippa? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, noted.
Thank you. As you know, we are required to publish a statement of community involvement and review the statements at least every 5 years. And our last one was due for review, or is due for review now, which is what we've done. The statement actually describes how our residents and businesses and interest groups can get involved in the planning process. You know, how we make policies and neighborhood planning. We know planning can be a very emotive issue. It's also misunderstood by many and usually given a bad press, especially when decisions are made according to what are material planning considerations, but not the liking of the local community. It is why we felt it was important to go to public consultation so residents can have the opportunity to understand the process better and tell us what they think. We did the consultation even though it is not statutory requirement for us to do that. We received 53 representations and the results are in Appendix 1 of the report on pages 287 to 321. And officers have been able to take into consideration the results and made some modifications using that feedback. And of course, just a highlight of those are in paragraph 11 on page 283 of our report. So I wouldn't sort of, highlight all that. But I wish to make some important points. As a local planning authority, we encourage applicants to engage with the planning service and the local community early in the process before submitting an application. Now, Table 3 on page 346 gives a summary of the planning process, and all the applications that we receive are available to view online, and a weekly list of validated and applications determined are made available for parish and town councils and any other interested parties who want to know about or keep up to date on the planning decisions in their area. The pre-app stage is where an applicant can discuss with us their proposals with planning officers and the relevant statutory consultees so they get appropriate advice, understand policies that apply, identify issues and opportunities, and what information they need to submit. This is very important, and we encourage applicants to do that. And of course, if the advice is followed, obviously the application that is submitted should then sort of go through the process more smoothly. The other thing that we encourage a lot is engaging with the local community early. It's important that applicants understand better how their proposals will affect the community that they're going to be building in. And it's especially important if it's going to have a significant impact on the community or is considered sensitive. And just to say, we provide more information on the planning website about the pre-app service or how to request a duty planning officer service where members of the public can obtain advice and guidance, especially on household applications as well. Because sometimes, people only have the, contact with us once because they want to, extend the house or put something up. And, it's not a constant thing. I'll also mention that one new way that community can engage is what we call the urban rooms. I know we're in a rural area, we don't like hearing the word urban, but this is a place where the public can come together and actually discuss planning issues without, without prejudice, express their views and discuss about proposed developments. Now, there is one being created now, as we speak, in Cambridge. We call it the Cambridge Room. Well, watch this space. The more we bring that forward, the more information I'll be able to provide as we do that. We also know that there are many underrepresented groups in the community that we want to engage with. And as a start, for the very first time, the statement includes the process of engaging with our young people. We have an award-winning youth engagement service, which we call YES, and have given young people an opportunity to actually engage with some of the bigger planning opportunities. So there's more that I can say about the statement of community involvement, but I think I'll stop here for now. But we really encourage everyone to read that document. It's very important. We've made it very user-friendly, I like to think. And I want to say thank you to the officers. Terry is here. If there's anything else I've missed that's important that you might want to add and to answer questions. I will therefore move recommendations in paragraphs 4A to the amended C on page 281. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Handley, do you want to add anything?
Only to say I fully support this. I mean, since I've been in my current role, it's been astonishing how much people need to learn often about the planning process, and I think any engagement, all of this engagement, I think will bear fruit, and it's to be encouraged and applauded. Thank you.
Thank you. And we all know, the more you engage with people, the better it is. Even if it's bad news, you're engaging with them. They like, they have a right to know what's going on, and it's really difficult. So thank you very much to all concerned for So it's a statutory requirement. I'm just confirming that we have this. So, you know, we've had rollback from government on equality, diversity and inclusion. I'm assuming that the, you know, the appendix that is the equalities impact assessment is part of the statutory requirement of such a document. Thank you.
Yeah, so both councils require the equality impact assessment to be undertaken for any new policies that the councils are looking to bring forward, and it basically sets out how you know, the policy in this instance will affect communities and various types of communities across both Cambridge and South Cambridgeshire district areas. It's not a requirement for the SCI to have this in terms of like a national requirement, but it's something that's done essentially at every local authority level. So that's how it's kind of picked up locally.
Lovely, and it's obviously very important. We'd be failing our residents if we didn't include this. Thank you very much indeed. Are there any questions from Cabinet or from anybody else? No, thank you very much indeed. So we shall move to the recommendations. If I can find them again. It's quite a big document. Right, hang on, I lost them. Righty-ho, okay. So recommendations set out on page 281. Do members agree with the proposals? Agree. Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? So Cabinet therefore agrees with the proposals. Thank you very much for all your hard work. So moving on to, we're on the last leg, 2 more to go. Item 16, Revenue and Capital Budget Monitoring. Councillor John Batchelor, hang on, no, Councillor, I've jumped ahead, Councillor John Williams and Councillor Peter MacDonald seconding. Thank you, John Williams.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I hope you note this because, in particular, I would ask you to note the table in paragraph 17, staff salary budget. If anyone asks me, what has the 4-day week trial done for you, I will point them to this table because you'll see that there is no variance. You know, we sat in this council for years seeing variances, particularly in planning and lesser waste because we've had to employ agency staff which take us over our budget. And you'll recall at the beginning of the last year, before the trial started, that we were about £250,000 over our staff budget on planning because we were having to employ agency staff. Well, look, see where we are now. 0. We are on budget on our staff in costs. And as I say, if anyone wants to see what the effect of the 4-day week trial has had on our finances, look at the staff budget table on page 411. Otherwise, the only other red indicator in this report is in housing, and that's because we've underspent. There is no significant overspending, and no overspends of any significance whatsoever in this report. So I'm really delighted for you to note it and for everybody to note it, particularly those who have been criticising us over the 4-day week trial. Thank you.
Thank you, well said, Councillor Williams. Councillor MacDonald.
Well, thank you, Leader. I'd like to second the recommendations and nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other questions from anybody? No? I think most council will give their eye teeth to be able to report, as you have done just now, Councillor Williams. Thank you. So if there's no more questions, do members agree with the proposals? Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone abstaining? No, so Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. And the last item is the review of the Ermine Street Housing Business Plan. So Councillor John Batchelor with Councillor John Williams seconding. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Leader. Well, I think we probably all agree that Ermine Street is one of the big success stories of South Cambs. And a huge thank you should go to Duncan Vesey and his team for the brilliant work that they've done. We're currently in a position where there's a contribution to our revenue stream of £4.5 million, and they have an asset base of something like £126 million for the £100 million investment that we've made in this company so far. This is the business plan to take us on for the next 9 or 10 years, and it's the plan to continue this success. So I'm very happy to move the recommendations, which I'd point out is this is an information thing, because the decisions about this are, of course, made by the board of Ermine Street and not by us as such, but we do take a close interest. So I recommend that we note this report.
Thank you very much. And just before we come to your second, can I just remind everybody that Appendix A is an exempt item, so if anybody wants to discuss the details in the exempt business case, we'll need to go into closed session. So, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. I'm delighted to second this, and agree with everything that John has said about Ermine Street and the way it's managed. Can I draw people's attention to paragraph 41 of the report, and that to me sums up really where we are now with Ermine Street. It's come a long way from the days when it was purely there to make money for us, and paragraph 41 shows how Ermine Street is there to help us with the housing crisis and to ensure that we meet our aim of making sure that housing is truly affordable for everyone to live in. And I commend Ermine Street and its management for the work that it's done over the last few years with us to achieve paragraph 41. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Huge thanks to Duncan for huge amounts of work. I just want to also commend Scrutiny and Overview for really squirreling down into the detail of this. At items number 7, we have sort of recommendations from them about footnotes to explain complex accounting concepts. There are a number of accountants on Scrutiny and Overview, so hence they got down into the weeds of it and lost some of the rest of us along the way. But that would be helpful, because we do all need to understand all this. Also wanting greater detail of any risks, and of course, with councils falling over financially all around us, it's absolutely appropriate that we give every attention we can to risk. And yeah, so I think the rest of the things were about risk. But as Councillor Williams has said, this delivers substantial amounts of money into our revenue accounts that allows us to do some of the things that we've been discussing earlier in the day, like shoring up mobile warden schemes. So any questions from any other cabinet members? No. Duncan, is there anything you want to say? We covered it. Jolly good. Let's come here for a listen. All right. Thank you very much indeed. So recommendations on page 431. Do members agree with the proposals?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. Thank you. So sorry, it was rather longer than usual, but I think we were pretty efficient. That brings the meeting to a close. The next meeting of Cabinet is on the 16th of April. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time.